Hey everyone. Hello, 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 hello. We are live. Welcome. We're going to get started. We're going to get started in just a moment or two with our live program. Just glad that you all are here. If you are with us, joining us through YouTube Live, welcome again, and go ahead and say hello if you'd like to, in the comments. Say hi, where you are YouTubing in from, and what you're hoping to get from tonight's program. We just really, again, really appreciate you're taking your time to be here. We're really excited. So great. So greetings to all the animal allies. Welcome to another AAM live stream program. Today we are talking about the New York City convergence and a big win that we had for the animals. And my name is Michelle Gramberg. For those of you who are new to Animal Activism Mentorship, AAM is a multinational program designed to fully support and empower activists to reach their potential and equip them with the tools, community, and resources they need to boldly participate in our global animal liberation movement. Founded in 2020, AAM offers a 3 free-month mentorship program which pairs experienced activists with aspiring activists. You can apply today to become a mentor or mentee through our website, animalactivismmentorship.com. We also offer free educational programs like this one. They're all archived here on our YouTube channel. We have a podcast also archived here on our YouTube channel called the Animal Liberation Hour. And we host large-scale in-person activism events around the country. And we're definitely going to dive into that. So with me then is the one and only Penny from AAM here. So hey, Penny.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey, hey, hey. So good to have us together. Let's talk about our recent convergence and all that that entailed and where we are now.
Yeah.
So I guess you want to start by talking a little bit about AAM's story, whatever you'd like to share about AAM's mission, and that'll lead us in today.
Yeah, sure. I can definitely give an overview of AAM. So for those who don't know, AAM started in April of 2020. So right at the start of the pandemic. What a time to be alive. Um, at that time, a lot of us were facing, like the lockdowns and isolation that came with the pandemic, and we weren't allowed to do boots on the ground activism. I'm sure a lot of us remember that. That was a huge bummer to a lot of us, because most of us who have been with AAM since the start consider activism like a big part of our lives. So, with not being able to get out on the streets, a lot of us came together and we started brainstorming, what type of virtual activism can we do that's effective for the animals, aside from just like calling and comment storms and social media stuff, which definitely has its place, but we wanted to do more. So we just got together and started chatting, and a lot of us who have been with AAM since the beginning come from really small towns where we maybe didn't know any other vegans, certainly, at the start of our activism journey. So we just kept coming back to the idea that if we would have had an experienced animal rights mentor in our lives at the start of our journey, that would have saved us so many years of wasted, ineffective activism. So with that, a lot of people, as we shared that idea around, a lot of people really resonated with that. And some of the people that did have more experienced activists in their life towards the beginning of their activism journey really, shared how influential that was. So, we just kind of ran with that idea. We contacted a lot of our friends who we knew who were experienced activists, reached out to people online who had like really good, really active social media platforms who were activists. We made like a Google sign up form and started promoting it on social media. And, from that came what is now AAM. So yeah, that's really like how we got started. I'd say our mission's been the same since the beginning and is, still the same today. We just want to help anybody who wants to fight for animals gain the skills, knowledge, and confidence necessary to do so. There are no prerequisites to joining AAM. You can be brand new to the movement, zero experience, just turned vegan or not. Or you can be someone who's been in the movement for a while, but maybe has lost your way, or you want to get into a different type of activism that you have no experience in. And we're here to help you. We'll pair you with somebody who can help you achieve the goals that you want to. But yeah, so that's pretty much our mission, a bit of an overview. And yeah, I'd say stuff we do now. We definitely have the mentorship program. That's like our core piece. We do a lot of educational content like this. We do workshops pretty regularly. We have a podcast, and then we do in-person events, which we're going to talk about today.
Excellent. Excellent. I love how you started with throwing back to 2020 in the days of the pandemic.
Right.
It was sort of bringing me all back, to being stuck at home, but still talking about activism the way we're talking about it now. And I remember when Shannon reached out to me about becoming a mentee, and then I became a mentor, and I was just so flattered and also really nervous. But
Yeah.
think back on that, how far I've come, and I'm really a good example, as many people are, of this program and why it works, because it's really the key to helping people grow and thrive and stay in the movement. Is the community that we establish for people is key for that recidivism, that activism, or that vegan recidivism, where people go back to their old ways.
Right. Yeah, for sure. You're definitely a great success story. You started out as a mentee, and look at you now, hosting the workshops.
Fight, fight, fight.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more, because as we said, AAM, one of our big offerings as well as the mentorship program, is organizing convergences that anybody can organize, really, in so many different cities all over. So maybe you want to give a little history of our convergences, how long we've been doing them, what that sort of looks like, and our most recent convergence. How did you become inspired to organize the convergence in New York City, and talk a little bit about the power of collaboration and
Yeah. So this is, I believe, our 13th convergence, which is just so crazy. The first convergence we ever did was I think we called it the Southeast Tour. We did like a tour style, which we don't really do anymore, for a lot of reasons, but we did a tour. I remember 15 people attended, which we thought was like crazy for the time, like so many people. So yeah, we toured around Georgia and the Carolinas. That was our very first tour. It was amalgamation of a lot of different types of activism. We did outreach, vigils, went to sanctuaries. I think we maybe did like a couple protests and disruptions, just like one-off, unstrategic, all the activism we could jam into. I think it was 7 days. But yeah, since then we've done so much. That was people loved that tour. I know I certainly did. As soon as it ended, people were like, when's the next one? And we realized this is something like we wanted to incorporate into AAM. So since the Southeast tour, we did one more tour format, which is just like less stationary. A convergence is like we go to one city, which is what we do now, but we just, toured around. We did one in Florida. We've done convergences in Chicago, Colorado, Ohio, some in Florida, Portland. Oh my God, how could I forget? But yeah, this was our 13th. And then you want me to go on to just like focus on the New York one and talk about like what led to that one?
yeah, bring
Okay.
us to the recent New York convergence.
Yes, bringing us to today, number 13.
Fast forward.
Yeah, fast
Warp
forward from all
speed,
that.
warp speed to today.
Yes. So yeah, so it really started. So I traveled back to New York City earlier this year in March. My plan was to just stay there for a few days to help with the Marc Jacobs campaign. Before going down south, I had another event in Florida that I was going to attend, but he ended up getting sick in New York and not wanting to travel, just wanting to like stay put and recover. So my stay happened to coincide with a escalation of tactics that we saw in the Marc Jacobs campaign. The campaign had been going on for, I believe, a couple years, at least a year. And the tactics that we saw that we were mainly doing were like store protests and disruptions and call storms, and things like that. But, we saw that that wasn't really working. Those types of actions are really easy for the executives and the decision makers at Marc Jacobs and other companies like that to ignore. It's not in their face enough. So we decided that that wasn't going to work for this campaign, that we had to escalate. It was time. We'd given them enough chance. We asked, nicely. So now we introduced another tactic that's not new to the movement, but it was new to this campaign. We started doing home demos. We started to bring the protests to the homes of the executives and the key decision makers at Marc Jacobs. So I was there for one of the first home demos in New York. And then we also started protesting, Marc Jacobs International, which is like the Marc Jacobs office, and a bookstore that he owned and that kind of thing. So that pretty immediately was we got a reaction out of the key decision makers. We went to one of the executives' home, and they were there. Like, they saw it, they knew exactly why we were there. We got to tell them to their face pretty much, what our demands were. And I just saw, we all saw how effective that was. And I was like, wow, if 5 activists outside of, or about 5, it was probably a little more than that, can elicit this type of reaction out of these people, what can 30 activists do outside of their home for a long time? So I spoke with a lot of the other people there that were, kind of organizing around the Marc Jacobs campaign in New York, and asked if they thought it would be effective and helpful if AAM organized a convergence, and brought a lot of other people in. And, clearly it was. Spoiler alert, if you don't know, we won the campaign. So that was great. And the New York City community was really helpful. They hosted people, some activists hosted people for the convergence, which was extremely helpful. Some organized actions during the convergence, which was great. Yeah, so that's kind of how the idea came about to organize in New York City. It was just like, we were escalating in the tactics. So let's, why not escalate in numbers and bring more people out? And it was great. But yeah, and I'd say that's kind of, you asked, I think earlier, what are the main benefits of organizing a multi-day convergence? And I think that is definitely one of the main benefits. The power of numbers. 30 activists, 40 activists, which is like around the number of people that we were seeing at any given action. I mean, some actions had a lot more people, but they're a lot rowdier and a lot more effective than just 5 people. Not that 5 people can't get the job done, or, just a few activists can't get the job done, because they certainly can. But having the power of numbers and all these people turn out and really focus on one specific campaign, as we've seen, can win a campaign. One more thing that I think is pretty a main benefit or a good thing about these convergences is the power of community. And that kind of comes along with like the power of numbers. So many people's favorite part of the convergences is just it being a place for community building. So many new friendships and connections come out of the convergences. People make connections with people all like across the US, because all of our convergences have been in the US so far. But for New York, we even had an international attendance. We had people from Germany, Brussels, Canada, probably some other places I'm forgetting. But, people are making those connections. They make new friends, then they go to their, friends' other state and contribute to their campaign. It's just a fantastic place to network and meet other like-minded people. That's definitely something I get out of each and every convergence, is just meeting new people. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so awesome. It's so awesome. You make so many good points there. And, for us to begin to get the macro instead of just the micro view of this movement, and we want to be one giant, movement to come out of our silos and see the power, as you're pointing to, of locals, I mean, are essential, and the power of cooperation and collaboration and connection at its best, and what that can yield, and what that can result in. And I'm glad you're pointing to the social aspect, which is like a side benefit, but maybe also equally important. Keeping people in the movement is being with people you like, and you trust, and there's a fun aspect to it. I don't know. People can comment in the chat right now. If you stayed at one of our activist houses, our Airbnbs, did you think it was fun? What did you get from that? What was your favorite part of that, or your least favorite part? Maybe it was sharing a bathroom. I don't know. Right? I don't know, but but really, that's such a cool part of it, and expanding our network,
Yeah.
you know.
Hmm.
So you talked about that. Now let's talk about the win. Shall we talk about that?
Yeah.
Like the big, we not just alluded to it. I think people know by now, as a result of this, we achieved what the goal was, what we hoped to achieve, but didn't count. There was no promises or guarantees, but tell us
Yeah.
about the Marc Jacobs win and some of the highlights, maybe the timeline, if
Hmm.
around all that, so that people listen up, folks, so you can learn from this, so you can pick up the tips, so you can become even more effective.
Yeah. Um, I'd say, so I really think that the win came when we started escalating. Like I kind of mentioned before, store protests, and call-in actions and stuff like that, like the stuff we'd been doing, they definitely have their place and they're good, and we should definitely still do those, but they're just, they're easy for the higher ups to ignore and pretend isn't happening. So when we really started doing the home demos, and not even just that, but protesting Bookmark, which is a bookstore owned by Marc Jacobs, and his celebrity friends have their book signings there. Like, these are his like personal friends, and when they have their book signings, we're out there like hooting and hollering and like making it not a great time for them. It becomes like really personal to them, and I feel like that can really be pinpointed as something that contributed to the win. Um, Going along with that, well, let me just start by saying that, okay, so we'd been doing that for around like I guess 3 or so months, 2, 3 months, and then we decided to do the convergence. We definitely weren't 100%. I mean, we didn't know if we were gonna win. We were really hopeful and we felt like this is the way to win, but we really didn't know. And as the convergence, as the days ticked by and day like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 came and we didn't have a win, we were like, okay, this is a bummer, but a good shot. And then for those who don't know, on the last day of the convergence is when Marc Jacobs announced the fur-free policy. So that was just a super surreal moment. It was amazing and so like poetic for it to happen on the last day of the convergence. But yeah, we certainly didn't know for a fact that we were going to win, but we definitely did, and we weren't going to stop until we won, that's for sure. So maybe we thought it was going to take a little longer, but it was definitely going to happen at some point. It just happened at like the perfect time. But another thing that I think really contributed to the win was our focus. I think our decision to focus on Marc Jacobs specifically as a brand, and going, we asked activists all around the world to focus on Marc Jacobs however they could. They didn't have a Marc Jacobs near them, didn't have a executive near them, focus on a subsidiary or a collaborator or somebody who's close to Marc Jacobs. But I think that also contributed to it a lot. We didn't, we had so many activists all across the world putting their focus onto one specific brand, and we weren't spreading ourselves super thin by asking, this other brand to drop fur and this other one and this one to drop leather. And, like we weren't all over the place. We were dialed in and focused. And I think that was something that definitely helped. I mean, so many groups had a hand in this win. Groups locally for sure. The New York community really, really came together on it, which was great. And people abroad too. We had activists in Japan participating, the local New York people. We had people in Europe, Florida, California, Idaho, like everywhere in the US, I feel like people were rallying behind the Marc Jacobs campaign. So that was definitely a contributor to the win. And also I think, diversity of tactics was really something that helped. I've been talking a lot about like the home demos and stuff, and that was certainly a point, but I think the diversity of tactics, that's something that we talk a lot about in AAM is, doing what you're best at, getting all activism for the most part is good. A diversity of tactics is wonderful, especially as a part of a pressure campaign, targeted pressure campaign. A diversity of tactics is wonderful. Like we had a march at the convergence, which was awesome. We had this amazing truck playing this like horrific fur farm footage, in front of the Marc Jacobs store. We brought the truck to the house of the CEO of Marc Jacobs, which was, great to have that there. That definitely, was shocking and contributed to the win. We had 100 at that home demo I'm talking about during the march. There were like over 100 people outside of this, high-rise apartment, which was crazy and fantastic. We protested, the bookstores, the executives. I've been talking a lot about doing home demos at the executive's house, but we also targeted the low-level employees, the store managers, which maybe didn't feel great to everybody, but I think definitely helped us secure the win. I think what kind of goes along with diversity of tactics is just mentioning that, the convergence was just a factor of the win. It was not the entire reason. It wasn't responsible solely for the win. So many activists and so many different people and their strategies contributed to this. It just happened to align with the convergence, and, all the people coming out definitely helped. But yeah, it was certainly just a factor for sure.
I love that. There were some really, really great tips in there. So I just want to revisit those for a second. You had said one of the most important components or traits of a successful campaign is focus.
Mhm.
And you also said diversity of tactics and cohesion.
Yes.
And as you're going over like the whole replaying it for everybody, I'm like, no, you weren't very busy at all.
Yeah, a ton of free
Nothing,
time.
nothing,
Yeah, a lot of
nothing was
downtime.
going on. Did
Yeah.
you sleep at all? There was no sleeping. But also, I want to read you some of the positive comments, Penny, that we're
Oh
getting.
yeah,
It's
I
like,
can't see any of the comments, so yeah,
I
I'd love.
know
Yeah,
you're blind to the comments.
yeah,
Uh,
got no idea what's
Kath
going
is saying we love AAM. That's Kath. We always try to make it out there to convergences because they make such a great place to learn and share skills. Belle Starn says AAM is seriously the best. Thank you. Vegan Equilibrium says fam. Hizaza says it was lit AF.
on. Oh yeah.
Vegan Equilibrium says it was a favorite part was making jokes and laughing, right? We're there for a serious reason, and that doesn't mean we can't have laughter and lightness and fun. That is super important.
Mhm.
Um, Empty the Cages says, so glad I got to be there. I love hooting and hollering with y'all. Yep, it was a lot of that hooting and hollering out there on the streets, getting kind of loud in that way. So is it you sort of already did define pressure campaigns, but I don't know if you want to add anything else to that sort of definition. And by the way, we have another great workshop that Trey did that's on our YouTube channel if you want to dive even deeper into pressure campaigns, what they are. But what would you say from direct experience, Penny? What are they and why they are so effective?
Yeah.
Why this one especially was so effective?
Yeah. So yeah, I guess defining pressure campaigns. I would say a pressure campaign is when activists make a specific and achievable ask of a corporation or company or people, et cetera, and then apply consistent pressure until the goal is achieved. That's what I would like define a pressure campaign as. So yeah, the Marc Jacobs campaign is like definitely an example of a pressure campaign because we're asking Marc Jacobs to announce a fur-free policy. We're not asking, right now the ask was not, for Marc Jacobs to go completely vegan. It was announcing a fur-free policy is like a achievable ask of Marc Jacobs, and we applied, consistent pressure. Something that would not be a pressure campaign is maybe something like asking like Smithfield, like the factory farm, to go vegan. That's not a pressure campaign. It's not achievable or winnable, at least like in the near future. And there's no way to apply really consistent pressure to achieve that. I'd say like a good rule of thumb for a pressure campaign is it has to be like a piece of the puzzle. Like asking Marc Jacobs to drop fur is like a piece of his puzzle rather than asking him to make his entire inventory vegan. I think foie gras is another example that we're seeing a lot of success in the US. Activists are asking restaurants to remove foie gras from their menu, not to like make their entire restaurant vegan. As much as all of us would love for that to happen, like, that would be amazing. It's just not attainable, at least not right now. So yeah, that's why pressure campaigns work, I guess, to your question, is because they're achievable and there's the activist power behind them to keep on, that consistent pressure, which I think is an important piece of, the puzzle. If activists can apply consistent pressure to a target, I think that will really hinder the effectiveness of a pressure campaign. I think like the fur industry is definitely worthwhile for focusing on when thinking about pressure campaigns. I tend to think of fur as like the low-hanging fruit industry of animal exploitation. It's an industry that's dying. Pelt prices are, at an all-time low. There are fewer fur farms in the US. I think maybe in the world, don't quote me on that, at least in the US than ever before. More luxury designers are announcing fur-free policies like left and right, thanks to organizations like CAFT and other grassroots activists. So many luxury designers have announced a fur-free policy in the last few years. We have YSL, Neiman Marcus, Allison Olivia, Montclair, Canada Goose, Oscar de la Renta, and I don't even think that's all of them, and now Marc Jacobs. But that is all thanks to pressure campaigns, and those are real attainable wins for the animals. So yeah, AIM has a great workshop on pressure campaigning you can check out. But I really feel, that, pressure campaigning is like the best way to achieve winnable wins for the animals. And the fur industry is a dying industry. And if we can't, take out fur, then how are we ever going to take down, animals used for food, animal agriculture, if we can't wipe out this industry? That's my piece on pressure campaigning. It's my little soapbox.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think a lot of that is the agreed upon theory behind doing it and doing it this way, starting with low-hanging fruit. And like you said, the centerpiece of any good pressure campaign is a specific ask that is potentially winnable, doable, achievable within a reasonable amount of time,
Right.
and realistic in that way. And we can see a path, we can measure and actually lay out that potential path. And we're actually reaching the people who have the power to do that. We're reaching the people in power at the corporate level, and coming at it from all angles in that way. So we got a couple other people checking in here for you, Penny,
Oh,
like
nice.
Red Pill Pete is saying, hey, shout out to Red Pill Pete. I heard they got the win when MJ heard Char was showing up to home demos in support of the activists.
I cannot confirm or deny, but that's
Okay,
a
I wasn't sure.
yeah, I don't know if that's true, but
I know he put it here, so I have to, I'm just saying that's what he
yeah,
said.
yeah. That's
And
funny.
Rachel from New York City says the energy was outstanding on the day of the march. We could feel the walls of the MJ store were vibrating. Amazing convergence. I think we were all really feeling that collective vibe together and really feeling like, hey, geez, we're part of something.
Yeah.
We're actually making a difference in that way. So in terms of looking ahead, looking forward a little bit, this is us looking back though, so we can apply what we've learned, and turnkey, keep keep turning it into something that continues to be successful. That's why we're not going after leather yet or feathers yet, but we're still going after fur. What does this, more about what this Marc Jacobs win means for the animal rights movement, for the anti-fur movement, and new targets again, whatever you'd like to say about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think this win means a lot for the movement. A lot of us were saying, leading up to the convergence, that this is like one of the most influential campaigns that we'll ever work on. I think maybe we were being a little bit hyperbolic, but I definitely think it was, an extremely influential campaign. I think that beating Marc Jacobs is a little bit more about like the cultural impact that it will have on the fur industry rather than like the tangible number of animals that were saved. Marc Jacobs is an extremely influential designer, certainly one of the most current influential American designers. A lot of up and coming fashion designers look up to Marc Jacobs and look to him for inspiration. And I think that as long as Marc Jacobs is willing to use fur, or maybe now, now that he's decided to not use fur and decided that that is a good path for him, it, allows other up and coming designers to see like, hey, this is not a thing that I have to include in my fashion or my collections to be a great designer. Because, Marc Jacobs kind of gave like the green light on, the fur-free policy. So I think, the cultural impact that Marc Jacobs will have for like future designers is really great. But I also think the campaign, like in and of itself, was really significant. I mentioned all those other brands that have gone for free. In the recent years, there have been a series of wins led by Coalition to Abolish the Fur Trade, CAFT. They've gotten a ton of brands to announce fur-free policies. And I think a lot of people who are around for those wins will kind of agree that we got maybe like a little bit spoiled because a lot of those wins came like seemingly pretty quickly. And there hadn't been a brand, since that series of wins, there hadn't been a brand that really like dug their heels in like Marc Jacobs did. Like I mentioned earlier, I think, the campaign had been going on for years, and it took us organizing a convergence and showing up outside the homes of like store managers who make like $20 an hour, something like that, to, get them to drop fur. So they really, they dug their heels in and they were really stubborn. And we knew that we were gonna get to a brand that like wouldn't budge. But we just didn't know how it would turn out or what happened when we got there. But now we know, we now know that even when that happens, and I'm sure there will be other brands like that, that's not going to stop us. We're still going to keep going, and, we've proven we can win and we'll win again. So yeah, I think, it was really good for the movement to realize that just because, things get a little tough and a brand doesn't cave immediately, that doesn't mean that we can't win, because we definitely will. And, I think I spoke a little bit about LVMH earlier, maybe I didn't. Marc Jacobs is, a brand under LVMH. They are the largest fashion conglomerate in the world. And they're kind of like the Goliath in the fashion industry that activists will have to take down. And Marc Jacobs going fur free, is signifies that LVMH brands can individually go fur free. So we can now, we now know that we can go at LVMH systematically, company by company, like breaking them down individually instead of just like screaming at, LVMH, this large, like behemoth company. We can pick them apart, like just like we did with Marc Jacobs and just like we'll do with the rest. So I think it means a lot for the movement, both like, for the movement as a whole, like for activists and their morale, and also for, the cultural impact of like the next targets for the fur industry. Do you want me to talk about like what's next, or do you have anything else you want to ask me?
Yeah. Yes, but let me look and just ask everybody for any questions that are coming up for
Yeah,
them
go
now,
ahead.
or comments related to what we were just sharing. And I'm just going to echo what you said in terms of it was an important win for the culture itself, for people, observers, to see that activism works, that we're not just it's not random and accidental. We're not just having these random actions, throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping, that there's strategy and there's organization to all this, and that, you know, for corporations, it's all about the dollars. So for them, one of the factors of why we win is because they see where their competition, they have to follow the trend of their competition, or else they are not on that train. Plus just the surprise, the element of surprising corporations they may be used to are showing up at the stores and not used to is showing up at homes, in that way. So
Yeah.
very important. And yeah, people are asking in the chat about what's next with your crystal ball. If you could,
Mm.
if you're looking at when exactly, what date will we achieve a fur-free world, or fur-free NYC? I don't know. What's next for the anti-fur movement? DC Animal Protection is asking. And, are we putting on the pressure enough? Do we need to put more pressure on? So what's next?
Yeah,
Who's next?
great, great question. Fantastic question. Um, yeah, so I talked about LVMH a little bit, the largest fashion conglomerate in the world. We just finished going after them for Marc Jacobs, but I think now we're going to pivot towards, other like still influential fashion brands that sell fur. Caft made an announcement that they're going after Max Mara, and we like definitely support that decision. Um, Max Mara is an Italian fashion group that sells fur. The campaign, like the one with Marc Jacobs, has been going on for a little while. They were being a little bit like sketchy on if they sell fur or not. We sell it, there's some of the customer service people are saying, oh, we sell it in other countries, but not this country. Oh, we're going to come out with the fur-free policy soon, but that never happens. That's sometimes like typical of, these brands are just trying to do like preemptive damage control, so activists don't come after them. But yeah, the campaign was already started, I think at the beginning of 2023. So yeah, we can't let them slide. We can't forget about Max Mara and go to another target, because that will really signal to the industry that activists, can be steamrolled, that if they wait long enough, we'll get bored and flip to another target that's more interesting. But we really need to stick with Max Mara. I think they're the next logical target for a lot of reasons. Probably that's too like detailed to go in and uninteresting to go into in this live stream. But yeah, we need to finish that campaign that was already started. We need to signal to the industry that we can't be steamrolled, and we won't be. We're going to finish what we started, and we're going to take them out. And Max Mara is definitely an influential group that will have a lot of ripple effects for other designers. They're European based, which is going to be different. Marc Jacobs was American based, and they're like headquartered in New York, which can't remember if I said that, but that was a lot of the decision to have the convergence in New York, because a lot of the executives lived there, and they're headquartered there. But yeah, so in summation, who's next? Max Mara. But in true pressure campaign fashion, we're not just going to be targeting Max Mara stores and employees and executives, but we'll also, encourage people to target all their subsidiaries, everything that falls under the umbrella of Max Mara Group. If you want a full list of the subsidiaries, I believe our handy dandy IT man will drop a link in the chat. It's just to CAFT USA's page about Max Mara. They list all the subsidiaries. And we're definitely going to be heavily, supporting the European activists, since Max Mara is a European company. So if you're in Europe and you're watching this, now is your time to shine. We definitely need you in this fight against Max Mara. And yeah, if anybody wants to participate in the Max Mara campaign, you can sign up to AAM. We'll get you paired with a mentor to show you the ropes, or you can just head straight to CAFT USA's caftusa.org and go to their little article about Max Mara, and you can get started in participating with the campaign. But yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool because I was just going to ask you how people can get involved, and you really answered that. They can go to our Activism Mentorship website or CAF's website, or I mean, they can, you can find us, and we can help you get more involved because we need more people to get more involved. And in the comments, I just want to say that Ingrid Newkirk says, great work on this win,
Oh,
AAM. Thank you
wow.
so
Thank you so much. Sorry, I
Thank
interrupted
you,
you. Go ahead.
Ingrid. Yeah, that means a lot, and right back at you, certainly. And then there's a question from Testify Redeem, whoever that is. What was your reaction to Marc Jacobs calling activists bullies? Is that good or bad? And
Well, I
it's almost
guess,
like a tongue-in-cheek question, like we're the
yeah.
bullies. Yes, we
Uh,
are. You're the victims, and we're the bullies.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess, we can say bullying works. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it was kind of like funny, but in like an absurd way to be called a bully. He insinuated that I think his Instagram post was just like the Wikipedia definition to bullying, which was kind of hilarious. And of course we know that like there are no bigger bullies than, nothing's echoes bullying more than what happens on a fur farm. I think is all of, I won't get into the graphic, horrific treatment that animals endure on fur farms, but that is absolutely nothing compared to what, their millionaire executives had to go through for a couple months, as we were participating in the campaign. But yeah, I thought something that was really funny was, I think in the definition, he talked about an imbalance of power, which is just crazy to insinuate that we have the power. Not only are they, I mean, they have more power in every way than us. They're this key decision makers. They're like actually making this happen. They're putting animals through this. And AAM has what, like a few thousand followers on Instagram. Like, Marc Jacobs has like millions, and they're all like multi-millionaires. I don't even know what his net worth is, but I'm sure it's, millions and millions of dollars. So yeah, the imbalance of power thing was just very laughable. And yeah, it was just kind of laughable and funny, but in like the most absurd way.
So that was kind of the collective response was, geez, what a bummer that he would say that, but at the same time, just sort of laughing it off a little bit and putting it in perspective. Typical response of what we get from groups, from corporate, and just from individuals that we do outreach with. That once again, that human elitism, it's all about me. I'm being bullied. So,
Yeah.
what people who are around the convergence are welcome to comment on how they felt, what they were thinking when that comment came through from Marc Jacobs about the activists being bullies, and do you all think we're sort of on the right side of history here?
Yeah,
And
definitely. One thing I want to say about the post, it was kind of like, it was definitely like an absurd post to make, but I think something that all activists should take note of is that he specifically mentioned that he was dropping fur because of our bullying, which just translates to like our activism and how effective we were. So he just kind of said it extremely plainly that activists caused him to go for free, and we were like the thing that caused him to make that decision, the final nail for that one. So I think that's something that activists should definitely take note of. There's no way that it can be spun that it was another way, like another reason that made him go for free. It was all us and our effort that we put in. And there's a New York Times article, if we want to put that like in the chat, or however that works for this live stream, that also mentioned the campaign and how effective it was at getting Marc Jacobs to announce a fur-free policy, which was great that we got press like the New York Times. That was wonderful. But yeah.
question from Belle.
Mhm.
How can I find somewhere to protest here in Idaho regarding Max Mara? There's nothing out here for me. And so there's some truth in that. I don't know if there's like in big cities, New York and Chicago, et cetera, if there are not high-end retailers, what can they do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like a lot of people are going to be in that boat. There's always digital actions that we can do. We can always participate in call storms, in comment storms on social media, emailing. We can always do that. We can always support other activists that are like, whether they're targeting executives or subsidiaries or group or storefronts, supporting their work and making sure like their protests get a lot of attention. But there actually might be some subsidiaries near you. I don't specifically know exactly. But as more information as the campaign develops, I feel like we will be uncovering a lot of potential targets. So maybe I would say just stay tuned. But even if there truly is not a target near you, there's always digital stuff. You know, we can always take a vacation to somewhere with some targets to do that. But yeah, there's always going to be something you can do as long as you have internet access, even if there is truly like no targets near you. But
Yeah.
yeah, so stay tuned to CAFT USA. Will put out, updates as they come out, and then I'm sure AAM will share a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah, of course, we'd love to everybody come to convergences, gather with us. It's not always doable for people, of
Right.
course, in that regard, but we appreciate keyboard warriors as we call them. You can, if you have a keyboard like you have right now, you can always comment, you can always make phone calls, you can even write old-fashioned letters, I suppose. I don't
Yeah.
know if they're in the best hands, but there's all of that as well, and social media, sharing, share. Share this video, share all the videos, all of that. Any other questions about or comments about the convergence? Anything else come to mind that you might have missed, Penny? Any of the highlights or lowlights?
Um,
Or,
highlight.
yeah.
I mean, definitely the biggest highlight was that, we won. That like moment was so amazing. I'll like never forget it. There's a great video that AIM made, kind of giving like a timeline of the Marc Jacobs campaign. I'd encourage everybody to check it out. Um, but yeah, there's a video like at the end, it shows the whole convergence and us doing our thing, and then at the end, when Marc Jacobs announced it, it was just so wonderful. Like there's like a big group hug, everyone's like so happy. So that was definitely the biggest highlight. I'd say another highlight that I saw during the convergence, and this is something that I see at every convergence, but I saw it a lot in New York. Well, first of all, I met so many new people. I felt like, this convergence, I don't want to give like percentages exactly, but there were like a ton of people that I've never met before. A ton of like mentees that came to their first convergence. That was great to meet new people from like smaller towns, or maybe like, they're from a town where they're like kind of the sole person trying to kickstart their activism community. And, that can be kind of isolating in and of itself. So for them to come and meet all these great activists, some people who've been in the movement for decades, who are doing great stuff, so for them to come and meet all those people and get a sense of community, that was fantastic. But something I see at every convergence, and this one a lot, is activists doing their firsts, doing their first, like their first protest, their first disruption, getting on the megaphone for the first time, doing their first home demo. I feel like that was a first for like a ton of people there. Maybe a lot of people's first bookstore protest, but yeah, just first time, maybe interacting with police in a way, like building those skills about how to talk to police and law enforcement at a protest in a helpful way. A lot of like just seeing a lot of people grow. I feel like I even saw like people change so much in their skills and their confidence from the very first day, where they like don't even want to chant, and then, halfway through it, they're like leading chants and they're given a speak out. That's always so wonderful to see. Those are like definitely the main takeaways I get. That and the win. That was great. But yeah.
You're reminding me, I had at the Convergence, 3 of my former mentees were there,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
how
Yes.
to be with them, to see that they're still involved, to see, of course, I don't take responsibility for that fully, but they are their own person and make their own decisions, but they're just still there and invested and fighting for the animals. And it's just a great sense of family and community, as people are saying.
Yeah.
And so Red Pill Pete has a question, sort of comment here, but that might lead us into our next question for you, which is about upcoming events, AAM events and programs and convergences that we're looking at. Um, he says, can't wait to meet more new people in Ohio and Texas, perhaps.
Hmm.
Hint, hint. So
Yeah.
anything you'd like to say in terms of leaning into, what's next on the calendar?
For sure. Yeah, I'd say the only event that we've officially announced is the Ohio Occurrence, and that's happening August 1st through the 4th. This will be the third iteration of the Ohio Occurrence. I believe it's in Columbus, Ohio. Fact check me if that's incorrect. They move around to different cities every year in Ohio. I'm definitely going to be there. I would encourage everybody to come. The activist community in Ohio is wonderful, and they always put on a great event, and this one's 4 days, so maybe it's a little more doable for some people who can't quite take off 10 days from their life. So yeah, I would encourage people to come out to that, the Ohio Occurrence. You can find out more about that it's everywhere. It's on AAM's social media, our website. If you have our link tree handy, you can get it through there. I also would encourage people to we haven't officially announced it, so I'm hesitant to officially announce it, but we do have another event coming up in October. So I would just, stay tuned to AAM's social medias for that one, for the announcement, and maybe keep your schedule clear for mid-October. And then also keep your calendars open the weekend of Thanksgiving in November. Again, that's maybe all I can say about those two things, but there will definitely be a few more convergences this year. So, if you got FOMO from the last one in New York, fear not, there's a ton of opportunity to come out to the next ones. And there's going to be more campaigns. There's going to be more wins, definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We're not stopping. We're only just getting started. So another reason to just follow AAM on all of our social media platforms, and, subscribe please to our YouTube channel here. And so you'll be the first to get the news about what's being planned right now. Do you want to say anything else about AAM's mentor program? I know we touched on that just a little bit, but any other specifics around that? And if any of our mentors are here with us still on YouTube, say hello, and anything you want to share about the experience of being a mentee or a mentor, feel free.
Yeah, sure. I'd say if you are watching this and you are maybe hesitant to get involved in activism, you don't quite know, where to start, what to do, where to begin, sign up to AAM. You got nothing to lose, signing up at least. As long as you have a drive and a desire to fight for animals, we will pair you up with someone who, we think can help you achieve your goals. Yeah, it's a one-on-one mentorship program. It's super low stakes. And I would just encourage you to sign up. You can, if you don't want to, if the mentorship program maybe isn't your style, you can stay in touch with us through Discord. We have a Discord that anybody can join. I feel like there's maybe there's a link on our link tree to sign up for that. We also put out workshops pretty consistently a few times a month that you can stay engaged with us through. I'd say if you are looking to become a mentor, if you're an experienced animal rights activist that has patience and willingness to work with new activists and a desire to help grow the animal rights community, and help new people achieve their goals in their activism journey, sign up to be a mentor. The only thing I'd say it takes to be a mentor is definitely some experience, whether, if you have a lot of experience in activism or you're very skilled in a few different types of activism. and you have a little bit of time, to dedicate towards teaching new activists, we're always looking to grow our mentor base. I'd say definitely time is probably the only requirement. It's not a ton of time, but it is a little bit. So if you're like on the edge of burnout, I'd say maybe becoming a mentor isn't the best thing at this time. But we do have a lot of resources on burnout that maybe you can check out before becoming a mentor. We've got, I think, some workshops on self-care. Occasionally we do support groups. You can find out about that through our Facebook events page. We have an Eventbrite too. Those might be helpful for you, or other activists or vegans in your community might find those helpful. But yeah, and then stay tuned for the next convergence, because there will definitely be a few more this year.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Stay tuned, right, for the fall potentially. And yeah, becoming a mentor, if you're not sure whether you can always apply and you can ask your questions, but it definitely, it's like a mini job in some ways, but it's another form of activism to take a less experienced mentee under your wing.
Mhm.
Is that species to say? I'm not sure.
No, it's
It
love it.
takes some commitment and time in a good way and
Yeah.
energy for that. Rachel says October and FFF, please. And Jasenia has just maybe this might be our final question, which is activists are often told to use less aggressive and antagonistic tactics. Can you provide other examples of escalation and more confrontational tactics leading to success after other efforts failed?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like anything that, escalates like the energy can be considered an escalation. For example, if you're doing like store protests that happen maybe like at the same exact time for the same duration, maybe they involve just a lot of like sign holding, maybe they're not very like vocal. I would say even stepping them up a notch and, maybe bringing out the megaphones if those are like legal in your area, obviously. Maybe doing a disruption, anything like that can definitely be an escalation. Um, I think a lot of people conflate aggressive and violent, which I think is a very false conflation. None of the none of the tactics that were utilized during the convergence were violent. We're always nonviolent, of course. Even a home demo, is definitely nonviolent, and that's certainly an escalation. So yeah, I'd say anything that brings up the energy, whether that's like upping your store demos or secondary and tertiary targeting could definitely be an escalation. What that means is, like when I talked about the subsidiaries under Max Mara, I feel like that's either secondary or tertiary targeting, one of the two, but just starting to target brands or corporations that are affiliated with your actual target, and encouraging them to cut ties with the target is definitely an escalation, because you're like broadening your scope of who you're protesting. Those are all great nonviolent, wonderful ways to escalate, that will only, strengthen your chances of getting a win. If I'm missing any and people in the comments want to fill in, I'm definitely open to that. But just off the top of my head, those are like a few
Oh, that's
escalatory.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
any other escalation techniques that are brief enough to sort of share in the chat and other folks can sort of take a look at that. But yeah, our aim is always nonviolent actions, peaceful,
Right.
although peaceful is sort of as a subjective term. It doesn't really look peaceful, not in the way we think of
Right.
peaceful, just sitting calmly still. And unfortunately, just asking nicely and saying please doesn't work with
Yeah.
this. So
Yeah.
that's why we
One
exercise
more.
our First Amendment rights to get loud and to
Yeah.
speak it.
One more point about escalation that I forgot to mention is escalation isn't always like necessary. I wouldn't, start out with escalation. I don't know if that completely even makes sense, but like, starting with like the bare minimum of what you have to do. That could even mean like emailing the company and asking them to go for free, or emailing, let's like moving away from fur, like foie gras, emailing the restaurant, asking them to drop foie gras, that's like the baseline, picking up the phone and calling them. Like you should always start with like the least, escalatory thing. And then, as they become less and less responsive, you want to like check all of your like good citizen boxes of like, I tried the proper channels and now they've forced me to, escalate it and move it up the chain. I think that's important. And then kind of like feeling it out, like the Marc Jacobs campaign, we didn't start out with home demos. It took took the campaign like several years, or definitely over a year to get to that point. So yeah, and I think that's pretty good. Just like escalating so you move through like the proper channels. Or yeah.
I like that.
Mhm.
I like that. And we're getting some really great comments. So folks can continue to read there. And Penny, I'll go back and read those after this. But our behind the scenes animal activism mentorship, Trey says some campaigns have been won with one email. Give the
Yeah,
company a chance or two to do the right thing before you start going all out. So it's a building, it's a laying a foundation, building, increasing escalation as needed and as necessary, not starting at the highest possible level, but
yeah.
yeah. So there is a method to the madness in that way. So, we're coming up on an hour here, Penny. I don't think we have any other questions. Do you have any? I'm going to wrap up with a few of our announcements, but do you have any final words?
Yeah, I would just say pressure campaigns work, as demonstrated by this whole live stream. I would encourage everybody to participate in the Max Mara campaign that is fully launched now that we've beat Marc Jacobs. It's very important that we stay focused on Max Mara, so we can get them out of the way and move on to the next company. But it's really going to be our focus and dedication and consistency that will win this campaign. So stay tuned to CAFT USA. They'll be updating as the campaign goes along, and so will AAM. I also just want to quickly really shout out the New York community. The convergence wouldn't have been possible without their support. Everybody really came together and helped, people hosted people organized actions, people, rallied the activists that we didn't know, that the local people are so much more in touch with their community. It was they were instrumental to the convergence happening. And then just a reminder that, it was really all of the activists that contributed to the Marc Jacobs win. The convergence was just one piece of the puzzle, but it was activists internationally and all across the US that really secured this win. So this is everybody's win. Thank you to everybody who participated, even if it was just one phone call or one store demo or anything, that this is all of our wins. So thanks for that, and stay tuned for the next convergence, and let's beat Max Mara.
Woohoo! I love it. I love it. And I echo your appreciation of the community that we tapped into it. But I want to personally and on behalf of everyone thank you as well. Any other shout outs for Penny? Go ahead in the comments, because as well somebody has to be the organizer and share those responsibilities. But it takes someone to sort of have that initial idea. And so thank you for all your time and energy and wisdom going into it. So very cool. As we're wrapping up now, appreciating everybody. We have another live stream tomorrow. I just want to let you know, and that's Tuesday, June 18th. So come right back to our YouTube channel to watch that. That's with Justin Jacobs of Debug Your Brain. It'll be about outreach strategies, video creation, and much more. And we have many more live streams and workshops and programs planned and to be announced. And just again, the Ohio occurrence, you can find out more information on any of our social media platforms and on our website, I think. And August 1st through 4th are the dates for that. More dates to be announced. Again, subscribe to our YouTube channel as long as you're here. Please consider becoming a patron by finding AAM on Patreon. Your donations allow AAM to continue to provide educational resources for activists, which ultimately saves more animals. And again, that wraps up another AAM program. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Penny, for your time. Thanks, Trey, behind the scenes for handling all the tech and the social media as always. And thank you all for being here and the tireless work that you're doing for the animals. And so stay strong and live vegan, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Michelle.
everybody.
Bye.
All right.